It's arguably the commercial and digital backbone of the modern world. We're talking about Amazon.
That's absolutely right. I mean, when you look at the whole landscape of big tech.
The Apples, the Microsofts, the Metas.
Exactly. Amazon it stands out because it's operating as the largest retailer, the most dominant cloud provider, and a major logistics firm, all at the same time.
So our mission today is to unpack that. How Jeff Bezos' idea became the everything store.
Right, but we also have to spend just as much time on the other side of it, the massive and, varied criticisms that come along with that kind of scale.
Okay, so let's unpack this journey. Let's start at the beginning. The company was first called Cadabra, Inc.
The company was incorporated as Cadabra, Inc.
Founded by Jeff Bezos in Washington.
And it started famously as just an online bookstore.
But that focus, it was really short-lived. By 98, they were already adding music and videos. By 99, they were selling video games, electronics, toys.
So this was always about getting bigger.
Oh, always about scale. And that pursuit of scale led to numbers that are they're hard to comprehend. The sources are projecting something like $637.9 billion in revenue for 2024.
$637 billion.
And the workforce. It's not just a company, it's an ecosystem. They're employing 1,556,000 people globally this year.
A workforce the size of a small nation. That really sets the stage. So moving into the core pillars of the business, we have to talk about that power shift.
You mean when Bezos stepped down?
Exactly.
Yeah.
July 5th, 2021, he becomes executive chairman and hands the CEO job to Andy Jassy.
Who was the CEO of Amazon Web Services?
Which is a huge tell.
It's a massive signpost. It tells you that while we, the consumers, think of the cardboard boxes and the blue arrow,
the real engine is somewhere else.
The real engine, the most profitable part, is cloud computing. AWS, it launched way back in 2002. It started with simple developer tools and then very quickly moved into these huge enterprise-grade services.
Like S3 and EC2.
Exactly. Simple storage service, which is basically infinite cloud storage, and elastic compute cloud on-demand computing power.
And their dominance is it's overwhelming. As of late 2021, AWS had 33% of the entire global cloud infrastructure market.
Which is way ahead of Microsoft Azure at 21% and Google Cloud, which is only at 10%.
So Amazon isn't just selling you products, it's selling the actual infrastructure the modern world runs on.
Precisely. And if you look at the 2023 revenue breakdown, that duality is crystal clear. Online stores is the biggest chunk, sure, 40.3%.
Okay.
But look at the next two. Third-party seller services, that's just fees they collect from other people selling on their site, is 24.4%, and
Wow.
AWS is 15.8%.
So if you combine the marketplace and AWS, the power's really shifting away from being just a retailer.
Yes, it's shifting toward being the essential platform, the landlord for everyone else. And that's not even counting advertising and subscriptions, which are also multi-billion-dollar streams.
And that landlord model really depends on those third-party sellers.
Immensely. They went from driving about 40% of sales in 2008 to 54% by 2020.
And a huge part of that was fulfillment by Amazon or FBA.
Right, launched in 2006. That's the program that lets any small company use Amazon's gigantic warehousing and shipping network. It was a game changer.
And the global scope is just immense. They have localized storefronts almost everywhere.
Right. And while the U.S. is still the lion's share, almost 70% of sales, you've got huge markets in Europe, like Germany at 6.5% and Asia with Japan at 4.8%.
So this combination of retail, digital infrastructure, and global logistics.
It leads us right into our next segment.
The moment you control the platform, you control the rules. An early example of this was the one-click patent.
Yeah, critics jumped on that as Amazon basically weaponizing intellectual property.
To stop rivals like Barnes & Noble from offering a simple checkout.
But that's almost quaint compared to where the controversy is now. The real issue is the private label conflict.
You're talking about brands like Amazon Basics.
Amazon Basics, Mama Bear, all of them. The sources allege that Amazon used non-public proprietary data. I mean, the really valuable stuff like return rates, how many people view a product, sizing info.
Data they harvested from their own third-party seller.
Exactly. To identify lucrative markets, launch their own competing products for cheaper, and then allegedly tweak their own search results to favor their own brands.
So they're accused of using seller data to basically clone their best ideas.
That's the accusation, and it has led to massive legal blowback.
Like that UK class action lawsuit in 2022, they're seeking, what, $900 million?
A huge amount. And that suit centers on the buy box, that little button on the product page. The claim is that the buy box is rigged to favor Amazon's own products or sellers who pay for its logistics.
And the European Commission has also been investigating this since 2019.
Yep. So this is a consistent pattern of regulatory scrutiny catching up to them, and it's not just aimed at small sellers.
No, they've gone after giants, too. I remember the 2010 dispute with Macmillan Publishing.
Oh yeah, they briefly pulled all of Macmillan's books, electronic and physical, to force them to lower ebook prices.
And then there was the 2015 ban on competitors' streaming devices.
Right, they banned Apple TV and Google Chromecast because those devices didn't support Amazon Prime Video. They eventually reversed it, but it showed they were willing to use their platform as a choke point.
And that competitive pressure, it bleeds right into the issue of product integrity and, well, counterfeits.
A huge problem. The sources point to widespread sales of counterfeit and just plain unsafe products, sometimes sold directly by Amazon itself. Apple sued them back in 2016 over fake charger.
And what's the systemic issue there? The sources mentioned something called commingled inventory.
Yes, this is key. So if a legitimate company, Amazon, and a bunch of third-party sellers all ship the exact same product to an Amazon warehouse.
Say, a specific model of headphones.
Right, that inventory often just gets mixed together in the same physical bin.
So if one seller sends in a cheap fake and I buy directly from Amazon's own listing,
you might still get the fake one, because the system just pulls from the closest mixed bin.
wow, that's a huge flaw.
It's a massive problem. The sources say it's why some major brands like Birkenstock and Nike got so frustrated they just pulled their products off the marketplace entirely.
To be fair, though, Amazon says they're spending a fortune to fight this.
They do. Over $1.2 billion and 15,000 people in 2023 alone dedicated to combating fraud.
But the critique is that the spending isn't solving the core problem, right?
It speaks to the sheer difficulty of policing a marketplace this massive. And the integrity issue, it goes even deeper. It affects their most valuable asset, the product review system.
Jeff Bezos famously said Amazon published the good, the bad, and the ugly.
He did. He said they let truth loose.
But the sources show persistent review manipulation. Like in 2017 when they redacted one-star reviews for Hillary Clinton's book.
And then there's the more common bait-and-switch fraud. A seller gets thousands of good reviews for one product.
And then swaps in a totally different, usually cheaper product, but keeps the old reviews.
Exactly. And other reports found millions of fake positive reviews are just bought and sold through private Facebook groups.
Now, what was Amazon's response?
In 2020, they just removed the ability to comment on reviews entirely.
Which brings us directly to the next segment. All this internal pressure for speed and low cost has to come from somewhere.
It does. It comes from the logistics, the labor, and what the sources describe as brutal working conditions.
I mean, the operation itself is a marvel. 75 fulfillment centers, sortation centers, delivery stations. It's partially automated with robotics.
But it still relies on over 1.5 million human workers, and they're using these handheld computers to map routes, acting as human pickers in an environment that is just designed for relentless speed.
And the sources reveal a real human cost to that speed.
They do. The reports go back decades. The most shocking one is probably that 2011 incident in the Pennsylvania warehouse. Workers were collapsing in 100-degree heat.
And Amazon's initial solution was what?
To pay for an ambulance to be on standby outside the building before they eventually installed air conditioning.
That one story just says so much about prioritizing productivity over, well, basic human safety.
And it has led to regulatory action. Washington State fined them in 2022 for willfully violating safety laws.
For what, specifically?
For requiring those fast-paced, repetitive motions that lead to a high risk of physical injury.
And the fines are getting bigger. Just in June 2024, there was that huge fine in California.
The $5.9 million fine, yes, for violating the warehouse quotas law. It was for 59,000 separate violations.
59,000. So the issue is that the quotas are so demanding, workers can't even take their legally mandated breaks.
That's the core of it. And that pressure isn't just in the warehouse. It extends to the delivery drivers.
Right. The reports are full of stories about tight time constraints, drivers being forced to speed, issues with missing wages.
And notoriously, the practice of drivers having to urinate or even defecate in bottles because there's just no time for breaks.
An issue Amazon denied at first.
Right. They denied it until internal memos leaked in 2021 that showed they knew all about it. It's a direct negative consequence of that customer obsession mantra. Speed at any cost.
And against that backdrop, the sources describe a company with a long history of strong, organized opposition to unions.
Oh, yeah. From layoffs after a union drive in 2001 to using heat maps in Whole Foods to track pro-union sentiment.
What do you mean heat maps?
They would analyze data to see which stores were at high risk of unionizing, looking at factors like racial diversity or how close a store was to other unions.
Despite all that.
Despite all of that, and despite the National Labor Relations Board finding Amazon illegally fired activist workers, something major happened.
The Amazon Labor Union.
In Staten Island, New York, April 2022, they successfully formed the company's first legally recognized union in the U.S. It just shows that worker organization is still possible, even against a corporation of this scale.
Which leads us into our final segment, the broader ethical and environmental footprint this giant leaves behind.
Right. And Amazon's integrated tech means it's a massive collector of your personal data, which presents major privacy risks.
We're talking about Echo, Ring, Kindle.
All of it. The sources confirm that your Alexa voice recordings are stored and can be released to the government with a warrant or subpoena.
And the FTC just settled with them over this, didn't they?
They did. A $25 million settlement in 2023 for illegally keeping children's Alexa recordings and, crucially, using them to train their algorithms.
So they weren't just storing the data, they were actively using it for development.
Which suggests a real prioritization of their own R&D over user privacy, especially for kids.
And beyond their own devices, they're selling surveillance tools, like the facial recognition tech.
Supplying it directly to law enforcement in places like Orlando and Washington County, Oregon. And on a global scale, the data issues led to that record-breaking fine from Luxembourg in 2021.
That was the GDPR fine, right? Something like $746 million?
Nearly $888 million US dollars. It was the EU basically declaring Amazon's data practices were globally illegal. It was not a slap on the wrist.
And in terms of content and governance, the sources show a willingness to comply with restrictive governments.
Critics call it censorship. For example, in 2022, they restricted searches for over 150 keywords related to LGBTQ products in the UAE.
And in China, they removed customer reviews for Xi Jinping's book.
It suggests that when faced with national regimes, profit and market access tend to win out over open discourse.
Finally, let's look at the environmental side. Amazon co-founded the Climate Pledge, committing to be net zero by 2040.
A noble pledge. But critics in the sources point to a pretty harsh reality check. High fossil fuel reliance, a history of getting an F rating from the Carbon Disclosure Project.
And they've actively lobbied against environmental protection laws.
That's the paradox. In Oregon, for instance, they fought a 2023 bill that would have forced new data centers, the heart of AWS, to run completely on renewable energy by 2040.
So they're lobbying against the very goals they publicly pledged to uphold.
And then there's the waste. That ITV investigation in the UK was shocking.
The one that found they were destroying 130,000 items of unsold stock
Per week, at just one fulfillment center.
And on top of that, there are accusations of exporting hard-to-recycle plastic packaging, which is labeled as recyclable, to be burned in other countries like India.
So when you step back and look at everything, the synthesis is clear. You have this unmatched commercial and tech dominance from AWS and the global marketplace.
But it's constantly countered by these deep documented issues with labor rights, competitive integrity, privacy, and environmental responsibility.
Exactly. And that duality, it really ties back to Jeff Bezos' original vision. Customer obsession.
The entire system is built for maximum speed, selection, and low prices for you, the customer.
But the sources show the only way to deliver that is to constantly externalize the costs. Push them onto workers, onto third-party sellers, onto the planet.
Right. The reporting shows Amazon consistently pushing against regulatory boundaries, privacy laws, environmental rules, labor organization.
It really does, which raises a crucial question for you, the listener, to think about. What does this pattern of behavior suggest about the need for robust regulatory frameworks when you're facing a corporation of this massive scale? And where should society ultimately place the ethical limits on the pursuit of the everything store?